But we got a special guest here, Vivek Ramaswamy.
We can't make that same mistake with Kamala Harris. I think the media needs to demand that she at least face the same kind of questioning that, frankly, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are getting right now. I don't think she has yet given us what her clear policy positions are. She sued the Obama administration when she was California's Attorney General for granting fracking permits. That's getting natural gas out of the ground. I think you want to go after the policies. Go hard in the paint. I believe politics should be about sharp elbows when it comes to policy debates. But when it comes to just saying that, oh, you're not normal, normal compared to what? That made a lot of conservatives and a lot of Republicans upset.
Hey fam, welcome back to One and Done. Today we've got the Breakfast Club and our boy Vivek Ramaswamy is making an appearance. It's his third appearance. He's on there with Charlemagne the Knob. Now, I don't know why Charlemagne keeps getting Vivek back on, because Vivek absolutely exposes Charlemagne for his lack of knowledge, particularly when it comes to policies. Not only that, I find him super weak because he has nothing to back up his positions. But this is an interesting discussion about Kamala Harris, her campaign strategy, and her flip-flopping on policies. Now, before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like, smash the subscribe, ring the notification bell, share this video far and wide, and let's roll that tape.
But we got a special guest here, Vivek Ramaswamy.
It's good to be back.
Man, listen, I like when, I guess we can call you a politician now, right?
I'm ex-politician. I was about like 10 months, 11 months.
But you might run again,
quit.
right? At some point, right?
I dropped out after I believe in trying to win, but when your moment isn't there, then you know what? You move on to the next thing.
I like when people come when it's not for any particular reason, right? Because a lot of times people come just because they're trying to sell you things, whatever. So I like to just see y'all up here kicking it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm back in, I'm an entrepreneur by background. The year in politics is interesting. You learn a lot. I'm still reflecting on it. But I guess you could call me a politician for 11 months.
And listen, whether I agree with the things you talk about or not, I got to give props where props is due. Great speech at the RNC.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Great speech.
I appreciate that.
That was a great speech by Vivek at the RNC. He really articulated his points of view really well, as he normally does. And this is why Trump needs to find a position for this guy. Imagine Trump, this guy, J.D. Vance. I mean, both Vivek and J.D. have been absolutely slapping it up in the mainstream liberal media.
You get the people with the call and response where they were finishing your sentences.
Yeah,
that's when you know you got something.
We tried to be as effective as I could there. The part of that speech that I wish I had incorporated more into my actual campaign was when I tried to talk through the speech through the camera to people at home who traditionally aren't viewed as part of the Republican base. And I think that that's something that we should all probably do a better job of, especially as a young person. Right? So part of my speech was talking to millennials, talking to Gen Z. I actually think a lot of millennials, so I'm 38, I'm a millennial, are pretty jaded and disaffected with policies that Republicans enacted, right? The Iraq War. Well, you know what? It was a failure. We got to admit that. Brought to you by the Republican Party of 2004. The 2008 financial crisis, as well as the bailouts, the bank bailouts, which, by the way, I was against before. We got to remind people to say, you know what? Both parties, including the Republican Party, have been responsible for some of those policy failures, but you still can't be jaded about your country. And to Gen Z, my message is, you'll be the generation that actually saves the country.
See, this is what Vivek does really well. He calls out both sides. He's looking at it from the perspective of what gets results, or what policies created the results that you're getting. That's what I like about him. He's not, he's running in the Republican Party or supporting the Republican Party, but he doesn't really care. He's using it as a vehicle to get his message out there. And the main thing this guy wants to do is to dismantle the deep state, the bureaucrats in Washington, particularly the unelected ones.
You don't have to bend the knee to anybody's orthodoxy. Not a Republican orthodoxy, not a Democratic orthodoxy. Think independently for yourself. And so anyway, I think that was hopefully a productive message and a starting point to say we don't have to shackle ourselves through these partisan lenses.
I agree with that, but why do y'all continue to bend the knee to MAGA then?
Now, the funny thing about this, Charlemagne brings up Vivek's bending the knee. I guess he's saying basically you're simping for Trump. But this guy, Charlemagne, watch as this interview continues. He's going to throw his support behind Kamala Harris, yet he knows nothing about her policies, and that's going to be exposed by Vivek.
Well, what is MAGA, right? We could talk about that. I think that there are many flavors of MAGA, and the idea of making here's my flavor of it. Okay, I'm not somebody who tries to hearken back to a past and say, "Oh, I want to go back to the America that I grew up in, or the America that I know."
You represent the future.
I want to make America
what
great.
America should be and could be.
I want to make America greater than it has ever been before.
Yes.
So I don't just want to make America great again. I want to make America greater than ever, and that's what our country has always been founded on, which involves recognizing that we're imperfect because we're human beings. We always fall short of our ideals. We wouldn't be human beings if we'd be a nation of, I know you Charlemagne the God, but we'd be a nation of gods if we did not fall short of our ideal.
Charlemagne the Knob.
But we're not a nation of gods. We're a nation of human beings. And so we're imperfect, but we aspire towards excellence. We aspire towards a better nation. And so to me, I think that's an ambitious, hopefully unifying version of a MAGA message that I do believe in, and I think people are hungry for, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that message.
Because it feels like at the top of the ticket, the Donald Trumps, and even now as Vice President J.D. Vance, they're always trying to take us back. That's why I do like the Vice President's slogan, we're not going back.
He's trying to take you back to being more responsible, having a community that's a little more working towards positivity, positive goals, family, not necessarily going back in time, but taking some pride again in meritocracy and getting rid of this victimhood mentality. That's what these guys are for.
Feels like.
Yeah, look, I will say that when it comes to messaging, that was a pretty smart message. People are interested in the future. What I think is missing right now in the race, it's frankly from both sides, is a hard discussion on policy. That's actually what we need. We're less than 3 months out.
You don't think Kamala's doing a lot better at that than what we were seeing before from Biden?
I don't think she has yet given us what her clear policy positions are. I think the fact of the matter is the economic policy. I was just on CNBC this morning before I came here. They're asking me, what do you think of her economic policy? She has not articulated what her economic policies are.
Well, she wants to rebuild the middle class. She wants to make sure everybody has
I'll give you some examples, right? Specific policies. She sued the Obama administration when she was California's attorney general.
Now, just listen out for the crickets in Charlemagne's head. None of this is going into his head. He gets sold on slogans. He thinks, oh, yeah, we want you to fix the middle class. But he doesn't care. He doesn't want to even know, doesn't want to know, doesn't need to be convinced on a plan that Kamala Harris has to succeed, to be successful in those goals and aims in her message. But Vivek's going to set him straight.
For granting fracking permits. That's getting natural gas out of the ground through getting hydraulic fracturing of natural gas. Is she in favor of that now or not? Her advisors are saying she's no longer in favor of that. We don't know. Does she favor extending the Trump tax cuts? The Trump tax cuts, I think, helped a lot of people, middle class included. We just don't know whether she's in favor of that or not. And I think Republicans, by the way, are making a mistake, too. I don't think that going down the road of, I think both sides, calling the other side weird, I don't think that's productive. Now, Republican responses of personal attacks in response, I think we would be better served in this election as Americans if for the next 3 months we have a vigorous debate on policy. Which policies are better going to lift up Americans?
Look, I agree with Vivek there. I think Trump has sort of gone off track. I don't think he needs to continually concentrate on bagging Kamala. I think if he sticks to the policies, I think she'll fall over herself, and they need to continue to call the media out for not putting her under pressure to do an interview or a press conference. Answer questions, answer tough questions. Now, Trump's out and about. He's going everywhere. He's been on Aiden Ross. He's been on Logan Paul. He's been on everything except PBD. You need to get him. And the other person is Joe Rogan. Now, that's another example of Trump doing unnecessary personal attacks. Now, Joe Rogan's entitled to have his opinion. I think he's wrong. I think he's delusional if you think RFK is going to be the man. There's so many things with RFK that are just off kilter, and PBD exposed him on his podcast. You can go check that out. But Vivek is about to explain some of the policies the lunacy behind some of the support and policies she supported in the past.
Yeah, I don't think.
And we're not doing it yet.
The reason I don't like I'm not gonna say I dislike the term weird. I just think it undersells a lot of the damage that Republicans are doing to this country, just labeling it weird.
What damage? What damage is he talking about? They're not in power. What's he talking about?
I think
it's not useful. I think you want to go after the policies. Go hard in the paint. I believe politics should be about sharp elbows when it comes to policy debates. But when it comes to just saying that, oh, you're not normal compared to what?
Well, I think abolishing women's reproductive rights, is a little bit more than weird.
But here's where we should have the policy debate in that, because this is so interesting coming out of the Republican convention. Donald Trump, to the ire of a lot of Republicans, is opposed to a national ban on abortion. So am I, by the way, and I said so on the Republican debate stage. I was in the minority last year when I say that I am opposed to a federal ban on abortion, just on constitutional principle. Should at least leave it to the states. That made a lot of conservatives and a lot of Republicans upset. And yet it's a weird position to now adopt, where if you do listen to a lot of the Kamala Harris campaign, they say he will sign and enact a federal ban on abortion. That's actually just not true, because, like it or not, he actually takes heat from many in the conservative camp for his opposition to that ban.
So why abolish Roe v. Wade? Why say things
that was a Supreme Court decision.
Why say things like you want to get rid of abortion?
See, this is the amazing thing, and this is Charlemagne. He comes across as an absolute dumbo. I'm not saying I'm a rocket scientist, but this guy cannot put two and two together. Now, Roe v. Wade was a federal law. All that happened was that was put back to the rights of the states by the Supreme Court, and the people in those states, 50 states, vote whether they want to legalize or they want to limit or they want to have no limits on abortions. And the public have voted, and laws have been changed to suit what that particular state wants. No one's banning abortion unless they vote for it. Now, the Democrats are supposed to be all for democracy. So why would they want a federal, why would they want to legalize it federally or have a law federally if they believe in democracy? Leave it in the hands of the states and let those states vote on what laws they want. And then if people want to move to other states that suit their lifestyle, then they do. And people have been moving, especially out of California and New York.
Pills. I mean, you say it's a Supreme Court decision, but he takes the credit for it. He says, I'm the reason that this happened.
Well, look, I think that there's a legal and constitutional question of whether the federal government should be involved in any of this in the first place.
Because that's not freedom.
I tend to come from a pretty libertarian leaning school of thought. I want the federal government to be doing basically as little as is required to make sure the country is secure and people are allowed to live their own lives. I think Republicans can own a message even of, you know what, to the LGBT community, the gay community. You're free to marry who you want, if you want, without the government standing in your way. But that also doesn't mean that men get to compete with women in women's sports, something that's even relevant coming out of the Olympics.
I agree.
So the more we're focused on that type of policy debate, and here's a litmus test I'd give you.
See, the thing is, the crazy thing is with Charlemagne, he agrees with all of Trump's policies. He agrees with a lot of conservative policies, just like what he's just said there. But the policies he's agreeing with go against what the Democrats actually agree with. It doesn't make any sense.
That wasn't a woman, though. You got to be. That was a woman.
The boxer, that's a more complicated case. It's intersex XY chromosome, though, right? But I'm talking about actually people who have male sex organs, people who have XY chromosomes that are competing in women's swimming competitions, right? Those are debates we ought to be able to have. And the litmus test for both sides is this. Whether you support Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, can you make the case for your candidate without actually referencing the other side? So my challenge actually to a lot of the Kamala Harris supporters is most of the case that I hear invoking Donald Trump. What is the case for Kamala Harris that does not involve referencing Donald Trump at all? I think that's missing right now.
Oh, I got that.
And for Republicans, I'd give you similar advice too. What do we stand for? Not just what are we against? What do we actually stand for? Offer that vision. And I think the country will be better off if both sides step up and do that.
I agree with you. I think both parties need to be talking about nothing but the issues at this point, because people are out here hurting, and people want to know how you're going to put money in their pocket and how you're going to keep them safe. Whoever can speak to those things to the next 80 plus days, that's who wins this election.
Mass illegal immigration, economic growth, and staying out of World War III. Who has the better vision to do each of those things? Do both parties agree on that? First of all, that's an open question. Where do we stand on mass illegal immigration? We don't really know what the Democratic position is. But assuming we agree on mass illegal immigration is a bad thing, economic stagnation is a bad thing, and World War III is a bad thing, how do we solve those three problems? Whichever party offers the better solutions deserves to be elected. And that's the way I'm voting in the election as well.
I think we have days, and I think like when you use a term like weird, like you talked about like when you first began everything, you wish you spoke to like the up and coming, like the people who are going to be next at solving some of these issues.
Yeah.
When you get on TikTok and when you get on Twitter, which a lot of people are getting their information from and are being swayed and conversations are being swayed, even media swayed by that, those are the terms that they're using. It's easy, it's digestible. And I think that it's a generational thing where you have to take what you guys are talking about and then partner it with that weird. And I think that's where you're going to get your winner from either way. And I don't think that it's Donald Trump, but I think that it makes sense what she's doing, and I think that she will hopefully get to those hard things, you know, but she has to win the people over. She had to woo us first, and we're here.
I think now the past is past. I mean, I think a lot of people have issues with how she was selected. I personally think going through that process, people don't care about that, right? Whether or not there was a coup staged on Biden. I've said this publicly to the Republicans, don't focus on that because it's up to the Democrats to decide who they nominate.
Right.
They've made that decision.
But she's also the vice president.
Focus on actual policy. And I have some serious differences with her.
But she's
on
the
policy.
vice president. If a president's not fit to, lead anymore, she's the natural person to take over.
Yeah, there's a real question around that too, is who's leading the country right now? We still have a country that's functioning between now and the election.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's definitely not Joe Biden. No one's seen him at all. Where is this guy? What is he doing? It's unbelievable.
And this is a question that the media has been surprisingly uncurious about. Like in a very serious sense, not in some sort of philosophical sense. Who's actually running the country right now? It is entirely unclear what the answer to that question is. And just speaking as an American, put the election to one side, I think that ought to be deeply concerning too. We've got a president who, in some ways, it reminds me of the British monarchy a little bit. Right? You used to have a British monarch who actually ran the country, and at a certain point, it just became a ceremonial figure. All the pomp and circumstance that you hold up as a figure, but really just ends up becoming a figurehead, an aged king that might or might not suffer from dementia. That's effectively what the United States has become, which is part of why we see the level of weakness on the global stage.
Vivek nicely slipping in these jabs. And Charlemagne's none the wiser.
Why we see the loss of self-confidence in this country. For a country that you just have the pageantry of a monarch that isn't actually the functioning leader of the country, that too, I think, is a pretty big problem. And Kamala Harris, I think, has an opportunity here. Whether she seizes it or not is a different question. If she steps up and is actually authentic about that question, says, you know what? We weren't particularly honest about where President Joe Biden was, and we deserve a government where the people in charge just tell you the truth. And say it like it is. You might like it, you might not like it, but I'm going to tell you what my beliefs are, and I don't want a bunch of lobbyists and bureaucrats around me wielding me as a pawn. And so here are my actual beliefs. And you know what? I might have said this back in 2018 or 2019, but I changed my mind. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't say it.
Yeah, she's flip-flopped on so many things. It's unbelievable. Now, with this video, I've got to keep interrupting every now and then, so I apologize that I'm having to do that. But what I was going to say is Vivek's absolutely right. Now, she is hiding. She's playing hide and go seek. She won't come out and she won't talk about her policy. She won't talk about her positions, what they were back then when she was running for president in 2020 and what they all of a sudden now. Now, also, she's served almost 4 years under Joe Biden. So she's been supporting his policies. Now, all of a sudden, she's backflipping. She's also stolen the no tax on tips from Donald Trump. Now she believes she doesn't want to ban fracking. All sorts of other things. She wants to be the border czar. But we need to hear it. We need to see it. Now, she doesn't have any of these policies on her website either. She just wants your money.
I changed my mind. Here's why I'm in a different place on fracking. Or here's why I don't favor nationalizing the healthcare system anymore. Because these are things she said in the past. It looks like her advisors are trying to say that she doesn't support that anymore. I think take the opposite approach. Just be totally upfront and say, you know what? Here's what I believe then. Here's what I believe now. Here's why I changed my mind. I'm not going to be anybody's puppet. I report to you, the people of the country. I'm different than Joe Biden because he was wielded as a puppet. I think that'd be bold.
She can't do that.
And well,
Don't
I
you
think
think
a
all
lot of the
politicians are
next
puppets, though?
generation.
Yeah, they are all puppets.
So mostly,
Trump
actually,
is a puppet.
for most. Well, you know what's interesting
He
about
plays
him.
the role of, being this maverick who's draining the swamp, but he's a
So I'll
puppet.
certainly give.
Now, the thing is with puppets are controlled. Now, not even people in his party or anything seems to be able to control Trump. So I don't think he's a puppet. And the other thing that people can be controlled usually through financial means, or they have something on you. Now, they've tried everything on Trump. Are they controlling him? Does he look like a puppet to you? He's doing whatever the hell he wants. Now, it could be not necessarily the best things he's doing, but he wants to come out and say things. I'm sure his campaign people are saying, hey, ease up on the personal attacks. Let's get back to policies. He doesn't give a. All right. They probably told him, hey, we want to do indoor rallies. You shouldn't be outside, your safety, security. It's too risky. He doesn't care. He's up, putting the fist up, fight. He wants to get out there and fight. He ain't a puppet.
You the 2016 view, because get credit where credit's due.
And he might be a puppet for foreign interference. That's the problem.
I think that's
for Russia and China.
So I think that the whole Russia hoax
International
that thing's played itself out, and that actually ended up being a little bit of mythology.
Talk
Back in
about
2016,
projection.
here's one of the things I like about Donald Trump. Say what you will, in the Republican Party, it was complete orthodoxy to support the Iraq War, to say that was a good thing. That was where the Republican Party was in 2015. And he was the only person on that debate stage that said this is idiotic, that we invaded the country that had nothing to do with 9/11 in the name of 9/11, that was idiotic. And now it's the Republican Party position, at least most people, to accept that was actually a bad idea. So if you're able to go into a room full, say it's a political party, and tell them something that's different than what the majority of the people in that room believe, and then eventually they change their mind, that's a real mark of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think Kamala Harris has an opportunity now, because the opportunity she has is she didn't have to go through a primary. Going through a primary is interesting because it forces you to actually bend the knee to, let's say, the far whatever wing of your own party and take criticism unless you do. She didn't have to do that.
Now, people like Kamala can be bought and paid for, whereas people like Trump can't. Or if they are, it's going to take a lot more. The guy's worth about $6.7 billion. Now, Kamala, I believe she's worth around about $20 million or something. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if you know. But the other thing is she's not a leader. Trump's a leader. He's not going to be told what to do. He's going to take things on board. But at the end of the day, he's a leader. He's going to make the decision. Kamala, she'll switch no matter which way the wind's blowing. Lick her finger, put it up in the air, and she's just going to follow that breeze.
So she has an opportunity now to take advantage of that and say, I'm starting with a clean slate, and I'm actually just changing the game for the system. I don't see her doing that yet. Maybe you're saying she can't do that. I don't know why she can't do that. If she's the actual president, she has an opportunity to step up and lead. But you know what? Just speaking as an American, I'm not voting for Kamala Harris. I'm going to vote for Trump on policy. But if she came out and said, you know what? Here's my stance on cryptocurrency. Okay, Donald Trump came out with the Bitcoin policy. Here's my policy. Here's my position on AI. Here's my position on the border. You know what? I was the vice president, but Joe Biden did some things that I disagree with. Here's how I would do it differently. I would at least respect her for that. If she doesn't do that, that tells me actually it's not that she's some sort of ideologue or some communist or whatever. Some people level that critique. I don't think that's the real critique. I think the real critique is then you just become another cog in the system. And what I'm interested in breaking that system. And I want the people we elect to run the government to be the ones who actually run the government. Whether
Now, Vivek's been absolutely consistent on this. He wants to break up the deep state. He wants to dismantle. He wants to get rid of it. So then the US can function and operate and take that wet blanket off. And he's been absolutely consistent from day one. This is what he ran on. This is what he's still saying. And I think Trump wants to do the same thing, but he probably doesn't want to do it to Vivek's level. Vivek wants to go Elon Musk on Washington, D.C. And big ups to him because I think he should.
I agree with you or not, at least the person who was elected should actually be running the show. And I just don't believe that's the case in the United States today.
Is that possible to do when you have these politicians who take all of this money on both sides?
No, that's a good question. Good point. I'm pretty
So I
much.
said she can't do. She's raising all this money.
Well, Democrats
now.
or Republicans can't do it.
Yeah.
Like if you're taking all this money from lobbyists,
Yeah.
how can you ever do that?
Or from super PAC, what I call the super PAC industrial complex. So the thing is, actually, back in 2010, the Democrats used to be dead set against the rise of super PACs. So remember the corporations are not people debate. That was around a case called Citizens United. What they effectively said is, okay, if you can't beat them, join them. So now you have the amount of super PAC money flowing in to support Democrats actually is greater than that using to support Republicans. But they're saying, hey, if we got the money flowing in, then we're not going to, if you can't beat the game, play the game. And I think both parties are worse off for it because the people who really determine the politicians' stances aren't really the people of the country. It's the people who effectively fund the mother's milk of American politics. And I think that's bad for Democrats and Republicans in the United States of America alike. So I would favor a policy. I think Donald Trump or Kamala Harris would do well to come out with this, to say, if you've worked in the government, you're banned from lobbying the government for at least 10 years after you leave. Neither candidate has adopted that position. I think it's a winning position.
We might get a little more honesty then.
I think
you get a lot more honesty because then they're only working for the public. They're not taking those extra payments, and they're not incentivized to prop up those markets, those companies. Their loyalties aren't split.
you might get a little, that's a risk. To some people view that as a risk. I view that as an opportunity. But yes, I think you'd get a lot more honesty. I don't think, a small one. I mean, I don't think congressmen should be trading individual stocks, or bureaucrats should be trading individual stocks.
That's
while they're
inside trading. Because
well,
they're probably getting
how does
tips.
it benefit the public? That's the question. Does it serve the interests of the public? I fail to see how. Absent that argument, ban lobbying for 10 years after you leave office. Ban the trading of individual stocks if you're a government bureaucrat regulating an industry.
Say names, Vivek.
You probably shouldn't be able to join that industry.
Say
for at
names.
least 10
Why you don't
years.
want to say Nancy Pelosi?
Well, I mean, you know, because I don't like saying the things everybody's always. Nancy Pelosi's, of course, guilty of this, but I'm a Republican. It's easy to just pick on Nancy Pelosi on a given day. So I hate saying things that are piling on when other people are piling on. But
yeah, they definitely need to get money out of politics. I think that'll be a great thing, but I don't think that that's going to happen. Too many people are on the take. Great to see Vivek back on The Breakfast Club. This is his third appearance, I think. Now, each time he's got a lot more comfortable. And Charlemagne knows how to keep clear of Vivek because he's been destroyed twice before. Now, he still looks like a clown. Vivek has exposed his lack of knowledge and understanding of anything about Kamala Harris. Now, talking about taking a knee, this guy's taken 2 knees for the Democrat Party. He doesn't seem to care what policies they've got. He's just going to vote for Kamala, probably because she's a female and she's a 1 drip black or something like that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like, smash the subscribe, ring the notification bell, and I'll catch you in the next video.